and professional I will introduce you to. None other than Roy Wood Jr. What's happening, bro?
Man, how you doing, man?
I don't know. I'm having a
How you
comedy.
doing?
I'm having a comedy special, so I'm in great shape. I'm waiting for this healing that's coming through comedy. I'm so proud of you. If you had to do a BCU, CBU, FAMU special, what would you call that special?
Ooh. If I had to do the blackest comedy show in the history of comedy shows at the blackest location for
All that
blackness,
is, right?
I'd probably call it all black everything. And I
Oh,
make the audience wear all black too.
cool. What did you take from FAMU that you still use today?
Direct lines of communication with people and not allowing people to ignore you.
There's a lot of
Even
creative genius that comes out of there. One of my favorite creators and culture creators is a brother by the name of Jay Carter. He actually
Mhm.
does a music fest in there. What is the creative? You've got Jay Carter. Y'all are killing the game. What is it?
Nika Noni Rose, Common, Will Packer, director Rob Hardy. Like it's I think what it is with FAMU, if I'm going to be honest, is that it is a convergence of cultures in the middle of nowhere. And I say that with all due respect to Tallahassee, but Tallahassee is not a city with an identity the same as Atlanta with the Spell House, or with DC with Howard and Mims, or even with Louisiana, with Creole culture that that Grambling and Southern kind of get to kind of benefit from. With FAMU, you got the Caribbean and the Latinos coming up from South Florida. You got Detroit and Chicago pipeline, which low key Midwest black is very adjacent to Southern black in terms of taste, but the fashion's a little different, a little more aggressive fashion in Chicago than Birmingham. And then you got the East Coast coming down. So you have these different convergences of blackness in a city that has no culture or identity itself, and you have to figure out a way to entertain all of these people at the same time. So it makes you very, very adept in figuring out how to speak to issues that are across the diaspora, or that can entertain across the diaspora at the same time. And so I think that's probably the dopest thing about FAMU, but you don't realize it at the time. That's the other thing. You're just existing. You're just trying to create a film. I'm just trying to tell jokes. I'm over here at Florida State wearing a Florida State t-shirt, pretending to be a student so I can sneak and open up for Lavelle Crawford or Earthquake and entertain PWI black students, which when you see a black student at a white school, you go, oh man, Negro, you just like me. You just over here. What's up, folks? And it definitely, prepared me, for the world. But I just think the thing that, to go back to your first question about FAMU, is that, well, I was a student. My degree is in broadcast, but my focus was radio. You try to schedule interviews with people and they tell you no and all of this. To this day, if I can just show up on your ass and ask you a question face to face, I would rather talk to you face to face than even email you. And I know that's kind of archaic in a lot of senses, but if it's just a quick question and you have 4 minutes, I'm gonna steal that time and the time it takes you to walk from your car to the elevator. And like that type of tenacity, because even now today I exist in a place creatively where you can tell me yes or you can tell me no, but you're not going to ignore me, dog. I'm
Let's
not
talk
going
about that.
away.
There's a movement. Obviously, you're able to write to it, but George Floyd gave us something. It gave the world a gift, and for some black people, it gave them courage. For other black people, it told them they were black. What exactly was the gift that created this new movement where black people really should hear what you're saying about being ignored and never allow them to ignore us anymore?
George Floyd and everything that happened around George Floyd and Sister Breonna Taylor, I think the biggest thing that happened is that it opened up white ears. And ain't much that black folks is saying now that they wasn't already saying before that moment. But there's people willing to listen and go, oh, okay, I understand that. Yes, you can have your TV show about the difficult thing that we normally wouldn't green light beforehand. Enjoy that TV show, yes. So I think that it also has made black people, if anything, we were already saying those things, but now we have a wave of black people and culture creatives that are now going, and another thing, what y'all also need to be. So I think that's what's happening with blackness now. We was already saying, hey, police stop beating us, but then it's, and another thing, stop it with the microaggression, and another thing, take down them damn Confederate monuments. So it's like things start stacking on top of each other. I think that's where we are now.
So when you think about anybody who follows you and looks at your Twitter page, culture is important. You've got a whole movement that's happening today that let us think about our ancestors. Why should Black people study their history for those that don't know?
You got to study it because it ain't in the textbooks, so they ain't gonna teach it to your kids. I'm finally starting to realize, as a father of a 5-year-old black kid, that it's on me and my partner. It's on us. Because if we don't teach him knowledge of self and pride of self and about his own greatness, he's never going to learn it. And he's going to second guess himself the rest of his life. So, that is very important, to me. That, it's dope when you see the little 4-year-olds and the 5-year-olds out at these moments. And they may not grasp it at the time, but they'll remember it. My father himself was a civil rights journalist and, covered everything from the 50s, the Soweto riots and everything in Rhodesia with their civil war and Vietnam. And he was embedded with black platoons over there. And, and everything that happened with Dr. King, my pops was right there covering that stuff. And I remember I was maybe 6 years old, maybe 7. Jesse Jackson, 84, presidential primary Democratic run. And Jesse came and spoke in Birmingham. And my father had me backstage, just kicking it with Jesse Jackson and Sharpton. And I'm 6. Like, I ain't really studying this. Like, but then you get older and you can go back and look at the breadcrumbs that my father kind of left for me. And I go, that lesson wasn't for then, it was for now. And so, I try to do the same with my son, but, I don't necessarily swim in as prestigious waters as my dad did. But, I try to bark a little bit about what's right. Every now and then I'll catch an Obama interview. It was over Zoom, but I still talked to him. It count. That's partial credit.
I love that part. There's a legacy. So when you can say my father, you're speaking to a legacy of another Black man. What would be the legacy that you are preparing for your son as he sees you use comedy as not only an awakening tool for society, but a way to leave him breadcrumbs about his future life?
The only thing I hope to leave my son is a decent work ethic and a level of concern and care for other people. That's all I've ever had. It's just, what can I do to help other people out? What can I do to be a vessel to help pass the ball? Or, I might not be the one to get there, but if there's a way for me to give you a push, it's like Talladega Nights, shake and bake. I got to help you win the race. So I'm happy to shake and bake, for my culture and do what I can to push other people forward. But, for my son, I think ultimately it's about finding himself on his own. I don't really pressure him for comedy. I don't let he understands that I do something in front of the camera. And then there's times on the train where we'll pass by a daily show like promo board or whatever, and he'll see me and he recognizes Trevor Noah as my friend. He just goes, "That's Daddy's friend." Like that's all he knows him as. He doesn't know what the show is about or whatever. But I think those are breadcrumbs that if he wants, he can go back and find, or he can find himself. I know he definitely has the ability to care for others. When we take him to the park, he'll pack 4 toys. Like he'll ask, like, let's say we take him on a play date, which I don't know why I don't like that word, but I don't. But when we take him to meet other children that he already knows, he'll ask for a head count. Who's gonna be there? And I'll go, son, 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 son. And he'll count out and he'll, 4. All right, I need to take 5 toys so we can all have a toy. And like he's already thinking ahead about ways to share and ways to better other people's lives. So I think there's something there already in him inherently that we didn't teach, just how and what to do with it. I don't want to be a parent that assigns my child a goal. I just want to give you the skill set to tackle whatever. If you have the tenacity to get back up after failing and you have the tenacity to continue fighting, you will be okay no matter what it is you decide to do.
Love that. And we all should give what we didn't get and give a little bit more. When you think about the idea of starting in radio, and for young hustlers who are really trying to understand how working, getting to understand, and work ethic that you mentioned it, how has work ethic benefited you? And what do you prescribe to them that they should be taking away from every moment that they get from radio, from the Rickies of the world, from other people, from Treasurer as you are building? What should these hustlers understand that's necessary when they show up?
I think that if you have work ethic is one thing you can learn. Like I think there's certain degrees of talent that you are born with or you just know how to hone instinctively. But the ability to have a work ethic, it's the old Will Smith adage of if we both get on a treadmill, either I'm going to win or I'm going to die, but I'm not going to stop. Like that type of tenacity goes a long way. You bring up Ricky Smiley. Ricky Smiley, that's my Birmingham OG. Ricky used to show up at the radio station at 5 o'clock in the morning begging, begging for airtime, cracking on the hosts as they walked into the station, playing the dozens, talking to them through the glass, to finally where they were one day like, hey man, come on in the studio and crack some jokes on the air. And that was 25 plus years ago. And now my man is sitting in Tom Joyner, literally in the same seat that Tom Joyner sat in for 2 decades, in the same building. And so that's where hard work and tenacity, can get you. I think it's extremely, extremely important.
So when you're from Birmingham, you get to New York. For that young child that's never had the opportunity to get on a plane, a train, or a bus and get to a cultural center and be a part of something iconically that happens for not just Black people, for everything that you contribute to that show, it happens there and around the world from anybody else. What should they know about New York as a creative and what happens there?
New Yorkers are not mean, they're just focused. It's easy. It's easy to like the best way to put the all right, here's something that changed for me when I moved to New York. The way I conducted phone calls changed because you don't have as much time. I can't explain it, but time moves faster in New York and you have to get to what you're doing as quickly as possible. So there was a time where if I talked to someone on the phone when I still lived in the South, when you talk to someone on the phone, it's, hey, how you doing? What's been up? How your mama and them? Anyway, the reason why I called you was da 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 da. In New York, you handle business first. Hey, did you get the thing, get the proposal? Did the contract get done? Okay, cool. All right, anyway, how's everybody? But when you talk to somebody from the South, they take offense to that. Or I used to call my friends and would try to handle business first. They would take offense to that. And I just think that the thing that you can benefit from in New York is that you're around a lot of focused people. Also, you're around people that believe in themselves enough. There is no one in New York with levels of doubt. We all have doubt and concern about our careers and our path. But the fact that you looked at a map and you chose New York City as the place to continue your journey, you chose it. Or you were born here, so the fear's not even in you because you don't know no better, because it's all you know. You're around people that are already on the same mission as you. So network and meet with those folks, man. That's the biggest problem when you don't leave where you are. If you're a dreamer, you got to be around dreamers. And if you done ran out of dreamers in your town, or you're the only one dreaming in your town, you're in the wrong town, period. You feed off of those other people. You feed off of that energy. I've gotten more accomplished in the last 6 years living in New York than I ever did in any other mile marker in my career.
So
You,
for comedy, it's everywhere now. It is a TikTok. Comedy has smashed the world in its face. Um, for young comedians, what do you suggest to them? If you're in your 20s, just getting started, if you're there, what do you want to tell them about this journey that they're getting ready to embark on?
be very careful about inheriting the goals of your ancestors. The comedian that came before you, whatever it is he chasing, ain't what you need to be chasing. It ain't gonna hit the same. Example: I came up in an era where everyone that I opened for was trying to get on Letterman or trying to get on Jay Leno. You got to get on that, man, because when you do that show, then they give you a sitcom. And that was true for a very long time. And by the time I got David Letterman, I got Letterman and Def Jam in the same 12 months. In 2006, around the corner to 2000, both within 8 months of one another. I did both programs, prestigious comedic institutions. And it didn't hit the same for me because it wasn't 1998. And that's not to say that those things weren't bad, but in 2006, what my ass should have been doing is settling in and learning YouTube and learning MySpace. I had 100,000 subscribers on YouTube in 05, back when people went to YouTube to listen to stuff. Lost the account over a copyright strike over some nonsense that I shouldn't have even been posted in the first place, but didn't even think of that because that wasn't what the OGs told me I need to be doing. The OG said I was supposed to try and get on Comic View 30 times in a row. And I spent some very key developmental years of my career not focusing on where the industry and where the eyeballs and where audiences were going. You have the power as a younger comic now to take a little bit more control over that. The system is a lot more democratized because you can find your audience doing whatever it is you want to do. Use social media to find your audience, but just know that the moment you show up live, you better have a show. So if you need to go and do shows incognito somewhere to get the performance muscle, to get that muscle worked out, then do what you do. But honestly, I think that there's sometimes there's a disconnect between the old heads and the youngins too. Though in a way the lockdown kind of shut that down because all the old heads that was talking shit about the youngins being on the computer doing them sketches. That's exactly what y'all had to do now just to survive because there was no club rooms for you, was there? No. So now you got to learn how to use a webcam, dummy. And you've been discrediting what they were doing. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned in my journey is that I should not inherit the goals of my ancestors. I should be looking to see what the youth are doing and figuring out ways that I can augment that for myself.
So
I'd rather hang out with younger comics than old heads, if I'm being honest. I learned more hanging around them young comics in their late 20s and their 30s. I'm 42, just for perspective. I started when I was 19, and I was always seeking out the old head could tell me the secrets of the comedy, and now learn everything by hanging around the. Oh, you gonna learn everything you need to know with your class, with your graduating class and your peers, because they're the ones that are hungry, and hungry people find solutions. Folks that's already got the gravy train going, they just gonna try and keep doing what they always been doing because they're not incentivized to grow or to develop something deeper.
I didn't meet Brittany. I've never met Brittany Peterson.
Oh yeah, my PR, yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say thank you, Roy, because she was real people. As Black media owner, we may not say thank you to a young Black PR person, but I do want to say that and convey my thanks because I think it's important that in industries where there just aren't a lot of young Black professionals in PR, and I get to see that collaboration. I just want to say thank you and know that you got a young little star growing there. So.
Oh, she's great, man. She's great. Good PR work, Brittany.
Written PR. So when you think about the PR, what didn't you know about publicizing, getting in front of it, how to use it, and now you've leveraged it to the point where you and the president are talking about being dads. Uh, um, what's that like?
I wish that I'd known more about just the art of promoting beyond just posting a flyer on the internet. It goes way deeper than that. And I think that's something that's often overlooked by younger comics. But I think also like branding is important too. Who are you? What is your type of comedy? What are you all about? Like I think those things also that holds a lot of water, holds a lot of water. Um, so in that regard, I think that's always been something that I always tried to get better at. But I also think PR comes down to shaking a hand or two after a show and glad handing. Kevin Hart talked about the year before he kind of blew up, did one more run of shows through the comedy clubs when statistically, based on the number of tickets he was selling, he didn't have to go through the clubs another year. He could have gone straight to theaters that year. But he deliberately went back through the clubs for a whole nother calendar year just to do meet and greet, just to shake the hands, just so people could touch him. Because once you create those moments with people, that's how you start getting the fans that are lifelong. And that's when you start talking about a career like a John Witherspoon or a Sinbad or Dick Gregory, where these brothers created so many real moments between themselves and their fans over the decades that you could tour forever. People bring, like, to me, the ultimate the ultimate compliment that could ever be paid to a comedian is when someone brings their child to see you perform. And everybody I just named had their grandkids at the shows. Whole generations of Black men sitting in the front row watching John Witherspoon. And that type of PR, that doesn't come from booking some magazine interview or even booking the Obama thing. That comes from personal moments and just being real with people when you meet them on the street. Be kind in the airport. Those little things are also, that's all PR too. Bruce and Lavelle Crawford. Oh my God, dog. I learned so much from doing morning radio in Birmingham for those like 10 years. Cause every Friday I saw the best in Black comedy come into that city, and they would come and do our morning show. And I'd say two of the best promoters are probably Bruce and Lavelle Crawford. They used to come to town. I think Earthquake used to do it too. The Earthquake might have done it on the Friday. I don't know if he did it the night before, but Bruce and Lavelle, whenever they came to Birmingham, would come in town a day early and just work the Black barbershops. They would go around town to all the Black barbershops and just crack on folks, not even get a haircut, just sitting there for 30, 45 minutes and just talk shit and dap up folks and bounce and go to the next barbershop, go to the beauty. Bruce will go to the beauty salon, get it. This is back when he was permed out, Bruce. Bruce went through that perm phase. He would go to the black mall when the black mall was still vibrant. And those things create moments, man. And those brothers still come to town to this day and sell 1,000,001 tickets. Same with some more. Adele Givens too. And these are people that aren't always on our TV screens as frequently as I feel they should be, but it's not reflected at any point in their ticket sales because they've always been kind. And then they also put on a good ass show, which is the other thing that, going back to the young people, the young people have to make sure they're doing that as well.
So when you say put on a good show and timing, staying in touch with yourself, stage presence, how do you get it? Where do you get the best muscle development from? And just knowing yourself, knowing like what happened, what clicked when you began to say, yeah, that's me, Roy. And then, no, that's not me, Roy. No, Roy, that's really me.
It's trial and error. You got to figure out what you're passionate about talking about first. Figure out what it is you give a damn about, and then figure out ways to make that funny or to make it digestible for people who may not understand why you see this thing the way you see this thing. And I think that part of it is very, very important. But a lot of it boils down to, dog, just getting on stage over and over and over again. And then when you get off stage, listen to your footage, listen to the tapes, listen to what you did, figure out ways to tweak and do it differently. And I think that's the stuff that I think a lot of people forget about, in the biggest scheme of things.
Developing your creative voice in film and television. You're on a big screen, but what, if you could, what would be your first comedy film that you would make about the South?
I have one that's in development now over at Paramount Plus and Viacom. It's not public knowledge yet, but it speaks what I believe the film speaks. It's a comedy, and what I believe it speaks to is how we forget how incarceration affects the people that are outside the prison too, and what they go through. And there's ways to make that funny and digestible, because at no point with my stand-up, like I wish that I could be Paul Mooney. I wish that I could be Dick Gregory. I wish that I could just walk on stage and just tell it like it is and just shut and punch you in the face with this truth. Whenever I do that, nobody buys it. Everybody hates me. I don't have the charisma like Patrice O'Neal to tell you a truth with no smirk and have you still laugh at it. I don't have it. So for me, I know that my comedy works best when I make you forget that this joke is really about something very deep and dark and unfortunate. And I'm just up here doing, and then the punchline sneaks you. That's how I'm most effective, is I can get you here, and then when you're not looking, hit you with a jab in the left door, or in your back door. Whereas, there's, the comedy bruisers who come out and they just, whoa, bow, 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 bow. And I'm not able to be a brawler like that with my comedy. It's more Roy Jones Jr., where I'm dipping and dodging, I stick you. So, movies are interesting in that you can talk about something that's deeper themed, but for as long as you keep it light and then you pop up places and make it dark, you'll be fine. But I think for me, it's about the first film, and this was the first thing I ever wanted to do, in the film capacity, was let's talk about, these horrible sentences that are handed down to a lot of Black men, and when we talk about, prison reform and sentencing and all of that, they frame this conversation around nonviolent drug offenders. Like they try to make it just about weed, right? But it's cats in prison doing 10 years who should only been doing 2. And did they do something violent? Did they punch somebody? Possibly so. But you cannot separate them from the person who just had some weed on them. To me, they're the same. They're the same person, and one deserves to be free. The other one deserves a lot less years than what they were given. And I think there's a way to have those conversations. I enjoy the challenge even of being able to have a conversation about that type of stuff and using comedy as the sauce to mix it up.
I love that. When I hear and see you approach what you're talking about, I'm not certain that people understand Bruises. But when you think of Bernie Mac, clearly, what comes to mind when you think of Bernie Mac?
As a bruiser, he's a bruiser. There was nothing subtle about anything that he said. He said himself, "I tell it like it T.I. is." Like that. I'd say right out the gate. But then you look at someone like Cedric the Entertainer. Cedric the Entertainer is not a bruiser. Cedric the Entertainer is a sneaker. He's charismatic. It's bubbly, and you're buying into it. And then he'll just hit you real quick with something that was the truth. And you're like, oh, ooh, Sid, I was not expecting that. But continue. It's like them ghost peppers. He got that ghost pepper comedy where you're like, oh, this is nice and enjoyable forever. Oh, racism.
I don't know. I think that when you start describing that, it's kind of like, and you were saying, I still see there's a goat in even what you're talking about, because you kind of did Roy Jones, and I was really giving you the, obviously Ali. I think there's an Ali
I'll take it.
I think there's an Ali quality to how you're approaching, even sharing in this moment with our community, that be great. And by the way, I'm enjoying this life, but be great. You got to work at this thing because it ain't gonna just come like no instant Cheetos. It's not a bag of Cheetos. You're gonna have to pay for them Cheetos, and they're gonna call you a shoplifter.
You got to cry in the car, dog. Sooner or later, this game is going to come and collect its money from you, and that money is tears. That money is absence from people you love. That money is constant rejection in the face of knowing that what they rejected is brilliant, but they don't see it yet. And how long are you going to stick with it? 85% of, especially entertainment, 85% of this career is emotional perseverance. Most of the people that I know who quit didn't quit because they weren't funny. It's just they got tired of this shit. They just got tired of dealing with the BS and the bookers, and there's a lot of financial perseverance you have to get through as well. But I really just tack that on to mental, because money problems are a mental stress. You just have to be able to endure that or do what you got to do to get by.
Getting by, literally, once you get from Birmingham to New York, you can't just be there. Not only have to be labor focused, but you have to be prepared. What's part of your prepared sauce? Like, what are you doing to put that cold cape on to put through every ounce of bullshit that even, because it's competitive to be in
your. I mean, I looked up. Sorry about that. I looked up because, I went to LA for a couple years before I came to New York. And that time in LA, stand-up comedy is not as competitive in LA on a night-to-night basis of doing well. And like in New York, cats will rag you if you're doing the same material after they've seen you for a year. Like, what else are you working on? What else you got? I got a new bit. Do you have a new bit? Let's put our new bits on stage tonight and tag them and help each other. Like, there's more energy with that. For me, the preparation has always been the same. You know, I'm never, the thing that I hate is that I feel like I never have enough time to properly work my material before it's due for air, you know, to be aired on the network, like my hour specials per se. For me, it's very much write the material, perform it a couple times, transcribe it, start, you know, literally going through and taking out lines that I feel like I don't need and get that out of there, and then taking that back on stage and refining the process of the writing. Then I start looking at myself physically and seeing, all right, when I say the joke like this, how does this joke work when I move versus when I'm standing still? How does this joke work when I am smiling versus frowning? How does it work when I'm speaking loud versus speaking soft, fast versus slow? Like all of these different, like, like when a producer is mixing, you seen the mixing boards that the music producers have, and they got all the little knobs with the little levels they can slide up and down. That's how I look at jokes, where each lever controls a different level of volume, tempo, um, the smile factor. The darker the joke is, the more I have to smile while saying it. For me, that's what works for me and my audience. Like, I just have to respect the data. I would love to be straight face, but then you take somebody like Dick Gregory. Dick Gregory don't crack a smile. He might give you a smirk. Maybe you might get 2 smirks per Dick Gregory show, but you ain't getting no full smile, because it's a different type of delivery. And it's the same thing with Bernie Mac. Now compare Bernie Mac to Cedric the Entertainer, and that's 2 different. If we talking smiles per hour, you know, D.L. Hughley might give you a couple smiles, you know, here and there. Steve Harvey, probably less than DL. And I'm talking stand-up Steve Harvey, because, you know, talk show Steve Harvey and radio Steve Harvey smile a lot more. Like Family Feud, Steve Harvey does nothing but smile, but that's different. Steve Harvey's comedy was straight haymakers, dog. Straight haymakers. I ain't got time to be laughing with y'all. I got to get this truth out of me. And so, you know, it's that type of stuff where when you talk about preparation, it's fun to look at different jokes, and you have a joke that you think isn't funny because you're just looking at the verbiage, when the truth is maybe you need to slow it down. If the audience is predominantly white, maybe you need to slow it down a little bit. They don't have a lot of black friends, so they don't speak fluent black, and maybe they just can't keep up with your verbiage. There's been so many jokes that work better when I just slow down. And it's wild. They
So,
just couldn't understand me.
so you learn more about yourself as you perform. But for those who are watching and you say slow down, what are you saying and telling yourself in your mind as you're writing these jokes? I mean, why is writing important for young comics, but just people in general who want to know why writing our culture, our history, our ideas, how and why is it important? Just period.
I know that a lot of people, you know, there are a lot of comedians that writing ain't their thing. I feel it. And like, you're just using you have bullet points, and you use whatever words feel right on that night to go from bullet point to bullet point. For me, and some of the points I'm trying to make and the arguments that I'm trying to present, I have to be very specific. And I also have to use an economy of words, because I need to get this point across as quickly as possible, because the longer I sit in the truth, I'm not making you laugh. And the end of the game, no matter what, is to make them laugh. If you just want to pontificate on all of the different nuances of an issue, then go do a TED Talk. This ain't a TED Talk. This a comedy club. So you've got to really get to whatever point you got to make, get in and get out of that, and then continue on with, you know, being funny.
You know, something I've always wanted to ask a comedian, and obviously, I haven't been able to ask Richard or Red Fox or Flip Wilson or anybody like that. But why would you sit in the front row at a comedy club? Like to me, it just seems like the place that people would just not sit. I mean, I never got it.
I will say this, having attended some comedy shows, I still love going to see live comedy. It's just a sidebar. Eh, it's like sitting in the front of a roller coaster. It's different than from the back. The further away you are, the less connected you're going to be with the performer, unless it's big jokes. Like it also depends on the size of the room, but I would say more often than not, the best place is middle, within 20 to 30 feet of the stage, no matter the size of the venue. Just be middle, or up front near the middle, near the front, but in the middle. Like if it was church, you would want like that second or third pew behind all the ushers, the usher board. Like that's where you want to sit. I don't know why people want to sit up front. Some people like to get picked on. They like it. They like the attention because it's all in fun. And you also, in a weird way, some people feel like they contributed to the show. I showed up in my blue gaiters and I sat down front because I knew good and damn well D.L. Hughley was going to roast the hell out of me. And roast he did.
Yeah, I never got that, and thanks for that, because I think the analogy, culturally, there's a church in everybody, and obviously you gave that. If you're going to do a church comedy, because it seems like church politics, what would that be?
I don't do church shows no more, man. I'm done with that. Churches do not like me. The black church, or at least the black church, and I can only use Birmingham as a barometer because I haven't done many church. I've done some Catholic colleges where, hey, here's the rules of what not to say because we're a Catholic college. But with the black church, bombing at a black church is different because you feel like you're being judged by your ancestors.
Right.
And I ain't like that feeling. And I'm not a dirty comic, and I wasn't dirty, but there's a very conservative ideology in a lot of black churches where we don't want to discuss this particular issue now, or we just give that to God. Let's not unpack that, baby. And for me, I'm like, no, we're going to talk about this, and a lot of my comedy deals with race. A lot of my comedy deals with unpacking truths that, to be fair, for the older members in the church, I might be bringing up stuff that they don't want to discuss or remember anymore. And if I have any type of opinion on it that's not in alignment with what was, like, for me, it's not worth the trouble. And then it got to a point, I bombed so bad at a church show one time, I was using God is good as the segue between every joke to try and get them back. But, it's people out there that know how to rip church shows, and they understand the shorthand and how to connect, with people that are a lot deeper in the faith than I am. There's Jonathan Slocum, Small Fry, Lester Berry. Chocolate went full Christian. All she did was Christian shows. She doesn't do secular venues or I'm sure she does secular venues, but her bread and butter was coming from a totally different part of the entertainment world. The young brother Kev on Stage started out as a super Christian comedian that did a lot of church shows, and he grew up in the church, so it's a world that he understood. And I think unless you grew up in the church on a regular basis, they can smell somebody faking the funk, and they smelled that on me, and we peeped that way back in like 05. And I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna go do these black colleges where I can perform at a step show and talk about some ignorant shit. But appreciate that little 500. Amen. I still took the money though. I ain't gonna give you your money back just because you didn't like me.
If you were doing a graduation speech as we close out here, and you were going to tell given it, they booked you at least 10 HBCUs. And
I'm doing one for FAMU for homecoming. I'm speaking at the homecoming commencement.
So,
at my alma mater.
That's your alma mater. What's that feel like?
It's quite a turn considering I almost got expelled. So to go from almost expelled to graduate to esteemed graduate to homecoming commencement speaker, it's quite an arc.
So title of the speech, and what 2 challenges do you want all young brothers and sisters getting ready to kind of like join this professional ranks? What would you tell them? What would you tell them about keeping a little joke in their heart as they process this thing?
I mean, I haven't worded it yet, but my base level instinct is to challenge these children to find a dream and never let go of it, and find a need and fulfill it, as the great A.G. Gaston once said. Do not at any point give up, but also don't come into the game trying to copy what's already been done. Vanessa K. DeLuca, who's a former editor-in-chief at Essence, she said something that just forever rang with me. She said, don't follow the conversation, create the conversation. And so that's what I want to challenge all of them to do. And that's what I challenge all these comedians and entertainers to do as well. Don't come in line copycatting, because that's not sustainable for life. That'll get you through, 10 years. But sooner or later, you're going to have to evolve. You cannot have a lifelong career in this game without some sort of creative molting, without some sort of evolution into something different. And so, you have to look at that.
Cool. Well, man, it's been a blast. Look forward to making
I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, man. Looking forward to seeing you on the cover. But the conversation has been lifelong. I'll keep it forever. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Star Studio here at RideCon with Roy Wood Jr. Thank you, my brother.
Yes, sir. Have a good one.
We appreciate you. Peace.
Yeah, man.